Excellent. Okay, well, uh, so thank you once again for joining us. We'll start with some introductions and then we'll work our way through this presentation. But also want to just like provide that this can be a conversation. So if folks have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. We can stop to address them throughout. And then we also can provide some time, like I said, to answer questions at the end. So my name is Morgan Snowatsky. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Student Organization and Leadership Development in Student Engagement and Campus Life, which basically means that my job is oversight, management, and support of our almost 800 student organizations. I'm going to have to adjust my number here because we just added about 42 new organizations that will be recognized next week. And so I'll have to remember that will be over 800 once again. Delaney, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Delaney. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior at Virginia Tech. I'm also from Ashburn, Virginia, because I saw some Nova people in the chat. So hello from Nova. I am an engagement ambassador at The Source. So essentially, I help students get involved. We do a lot of events. Morgan and I are currently working on something called the Be Well, Lead Well campaign, and it's essentially a campaign to promote healthy leadership in student organizations and student life in general. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, awesome. I don't remember, I haven't given this presentation in a bit, so I might repeat things by accident, but The Source, which the engagement ambassadors work in, is our student organization resource center. So we have a space in Squires where student organizations can come to get like physical resources that are free. So they're paid for by your student activity fee dollars, and we do things like posters, make buttons, and things like that. So I also realized I didn't update my title on the slide. So a quick overview of where we'll be going today. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what even is involvement and engagement, and then why does involvement matter? So what's the importance of it? We can talk a little bit about what involvement looks like at Tech. I also kind of assume people have some questions about what it's looking like this semester. So excited to also provide some context in that direction as well. Cool. So what is involvement? So when we talk about involvement, we talk about it as this broad term to understand experiences that further your learning. So that could be something like joining a club, and we work closely with organizations. We use club and organization interchangeably. They're the same thing, unless you're talking specifically about sports clubs, which are a very specific thing. But we also like to talk about things like volunteering locally, getting involved with a faith community in the area, or doing research with a professor as another great example of that too. And then involvement's kind of like, right, like our base level, entry level. And then when we think about engagement is going a little deeper. So it's going beyond being involved. For example, maybe you don't just like go to meetings, which is a great place to start. You could meet people, right? But participating in the discussions, or maybe getting involved in like a committee or taking a leadership position in those organizations. We often use the language of involvement journey to kind of talk about the fact that involvement's not just this like one-time just do it thing. It's a process that you kind of continue to invest in throughout your time here. And you kind of have to like find your way through it in a similar way to taking a journey. So usually it starts by finding opportunities. So Gobbler Connect is our student organization management platform. All of our organizations are listed on the platform that are currently recognized. Students can find information about the organization. They all answer some questions that are on their profiles that are public about things like how many hours do you typically commit? Who do I contact to get involved? And where do we typically meet? We also have events like Gobbler Fest and Gobbler Fair. So Gobbler Fest happened a month ago now. Wow. We're already that deep into the semester. And we did it virtually for the first time this year. We had 4,000 students show up to that event, and almost 500 of our organizations participated. So we were really happy with the success of moving that into a new platform. Heard a lot of really great things from organizations. If folks are curious about kind of what that looked like, I was managing the help desk room, but Delaney was in her room with her organization. So if folks have questions about that, I'm sure Delaney can answer those. And then we also do Gobbler Fair, which is in the spring. We started that last year. And currently that's being planned to be virtually as well, because it's similarly a large event. And actually last year, because Gobbler Fair was in person, but it's inside, we only could accommodate about 180 organizations, but we're really excited that doing it virtually will actually allow us to accommodate many more organizations in the spring opportunity, which is great for organizations. Organizations are very excited about these opportunities, and will be great for the students to not just kind of see like a limited sample of the organizations during the spring fair. And then there's lots of stuff around, around campus or online. Once again, Gobbler Connect is not only the place to find organizations, but it's also the central location for events on campus. So whether those are events being hosted by departments, so like that voter session, VT Engaged has a bunch of really cool sessions that are either about like civic engagement or service and things of that nature. So definitely just kind of like keeping your eyes peeled. There's always things to get involved with. RA recruitment's going on right now for students that are interested in working on campus as RAs. So definitely lots of opportunities, but sometimes that can be overwhelming, which we totally get to. Exploring those options. So once you kind of figure out an opportunity that you're interested in, so either with the example of like, I want to become an RA, or I want to get involved with the I Will Leadership program through VT Engage for women's leadership, or with an organization. So many of our organizations will host interest meetings, so I think a lot of organizations chose to do those virtually, but did some in-person events throughout kind of like the recruitment processes and things of that nature. This actually might be a cool place, Delaney, if you wanted to talk a little bit about how Sensations kind of did the hybrid of getting new students into your organization, and maybe you can also talk about Sensations. What a concept.
Always excited to talk about Sensations. So I'm in an all-female a cappella group here at Tech. It's called Sensations. I'm super passionate about it, hence why Morgan knew that I would love to talk about it. And obviously a singing group is something that's not super easy to facilitate during the times that we're in. So we actually were able to do our auditions online, and we had people send in videos of them, and then we did a whole callback process where we were all masked up and outside, which was very different than what we're used to. So we had to modify, what we asked them to do in their audition, and it definitely was, it took a lot of brainstorming. And I am the vice president and treasurer of Sensations, so being on exec during this time is definitely very interesting, but we worked it out. It worked out really well. We got wonderful new girls, which is amazing. And all the other a cappella groups, there's 5 other a cappella groups at Tech. They all got amazing new people as well. So it ended up working out really well, but it was a little challenging for sure, but we ended up figuring it out. So it worked out. I think you're muted, Morgan.
Sorry, what a time, always. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Great example. Also, I think another helpful example might be like our sports clubs teams, like I mentioned. So those are our, not like intercollegiate competing, but intercollegiate competing at like a different level. But the recognized groups, there's tryouts, they're pretty competitive and things of that nature that are recognized through our recreational sports department. And they all had to make very different choices, so depending on the sport, but I know that they kind of put off their new member recruitment and tryouts so that they had a couple weeks to kind of figure out, cool, how are we going to do protocols for safety and things like that. And so I think our organizations are really, figuring it out. Like Delaney says, it takes a little bit of extra brain work. It takes a commitment to making change in your organization. But we've definitely seen a lot of organizations really commit to staying active during this time. Yeah, you can find them on Gobbler Connect. Also, Delaney, do you mind also like popping through the chat for questions if you can answer them? That'd be great. Yeah.
Hi, this is Helene. Can I just say, I know for our student, we have found that the organizational involvement is almost even more crucial now than before. I mean, it's clearly a critical part of their university experience and making friends and having something other than academics. But I think some of this is the only thing that's keeping our students sane right now, is having groups of friends from her various organizations to connect with, to have something meaningful to do. She's on a couple of boards, you know, and just having something to think about outside of academics and quarantining and all of this.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the perspective of a parent, for sure. And then just a last point on this slide is thinking about kind of discovering interests. So sometimes organizations are advised by a faculty member. We don't require advisors for all of our organizations, but many of them are, especially if they're an academic or kind of more niche organization based on a topic, which is a really cool opportunity to maybe get connected with like a research opportunity. I know we have like our international relations organization sticks out in my head because they are actually working on launching their own research journal, which is a really cool thing. And their faculty advisor is extremely helpful with that. Or a lot of our organizations put on speakers that are either valuable professional development opportunities. So I think about something like Collegiate Women in Business and the amount of opportunities they offer to network with alumni and things of that nature. So just want to kind of give a full picture of what this kind of journey looks like. And then finding things that like help you figure out your values, right? So we're going to talk in a second for some tips kind of from student experience, which Delaney will talk more specifically to. But we really see organizations as this place to not only build those communities, like Helene was saying, which is so valuable, but to figure out what community really means to you, right? So you get to college, or, you know, maybe you transfer to a new school, right? Not only do we have first-year students right now that are figuring it out, but we also have students that have transferred to a new institution that are figuring it out in kind of similar ways, or our graduate students, in a similar boat. So I think that getting involved in organizations or in engagement opportunities on campus really allows you this space to figure out what your values are, and then how do you communicate those as you go throughout your career, right? This kind of holistic development of yourself as a student. So Delaney, do you want to take this slide?
Sure. Yeah, so these are just some tips that you can share with your student about getting involved. The first thing that we have here is basically just that it's okay to back out of an organization. Maybe you go to a few interest meetings and it seems really cool, but it's not exactly what you were looking for, and that's completely okay. I am in 2 organizations, so Sensations, and I'm also in Crew, which is a campus ministry, and that's all I need. I didn't need any other organizations, especially with the level of involvement that I have. I was able to just have 2 organizations that I'm passionate about, and that's perfect. And I know that freshman year, I tried to get involved in a bunch of different things, and it was a little bit too much. And it's okay to say, you know, this isn't for me this semester, maybe I'll wait, or I just really like these 2 other things that I'm doing, or whatever it is. So it's okay to decide that maybe it's a little bit too much. And I think it's really easy for people to over-involve themselves at the beginning of the semester, especially now when, like one of the parents said here, it's crucial for us to have that human engagement with each other, and it's really hard. So it is okay to back out. The next thing is that almost every single organization has some sort of social media, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, and it really gives you a feel for what the organization is like. A lot of them will do little spotlights of their org members, and you get to sort of understand how the group works, more so than like a professional, maybe a page on Gobbler Connect where they have all their information. Their Instagram or their Facebook might have more casual things like videos and pictures. And I highly recommend that if a student is, you know, they find an org on Gobbler Connect and they're interested in them, a lot of the times they do have their social media linked on there. And going to see that can help you really, really understand like what the vibe of that organization is. And then, you know, we always hear this in every single situation to be yourself, but it's so important when looking for an organization, because you don't want to get stuck in an organization where maybe your friends are really into it and you're not super into it, and then you sort of just end up in it and you're not having a good time. It's never fun when that happens. It's happened to me before, and it's not where you want to be. And so the biggest thing with coming into college, whether you're a freshman or a transfer student or whoever you are, is being yourself. And especially when you're looking for an organization, you want to be true to your values, to what you want out of involvement, whether that's networking or you just want a group of friends or both. It's really important that you identify those things and that you stay true to those things when looking for organizations. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Delaney, for sure. So got a little bit of trivia just to kind of mix it up in here. So we want you to guess which of these is a real student organization at Virginia Tech. You can put your answer in the chat if you'd like. So which of them is real? I like to make sure I'm specific because I feel like I do a lot of is nots. So A, K-pop craze, B, bamboo dance crew, or C, unswing dancing club.
Is it real student?
Yeah, which one is real? All right, we got some A answers. See a lot of A's going with the crowd. Got it. Okay, so the organization that is real is Bamboo Dance Crew. So this organization brings students together to perform a blend of modern, contemporary, and hip hop dance to inspire people to dance. I am fairly certain that Bamboo is doing a lot of like online workshops. So a lot of our dance organizations have pivoted to doing online open workshops where they would usually do that. And some of them are still rehearsing in person with their organization members that they're kind of like locked in with, but doing that obviously with physical distancing and masking at all times. But there are some spaces on campus where people are doing those things. Dance, big old sector of a lot of our organizations. So we do have 2 swing dance teams, Solely Swing and West Coast Swing, which have been doing a lot of community kind of engagement nights. And then we have an African dance team called Wahala that's associated with the African Student Association. We do have 2 K-pop dance groups. So we have Shade and Exodus. And so lots of options for those who are looking to dance. And like I said, a lot of those organizations, so either if you have kind of dance experience, you might audition to be on the team, and some of them compete and things like that. But they also offer open dancing opportunities that you can learn to dance, which I think is really neat to have our students kind of sharing that with each other. So a little bit about engaging, and Helene so beautifully kind of peeked at this earlier, but academic improvement. So there's a lot of research that backs up. I don't have like citations in this slide, but if you're interested, you can nerd out and I can send you some articles. But we know that students who are involved in organizations see better academic performance, develop skills that are really important in the job search. You know, when we talk about those soft skills like communication and really being able to talk to like, not just like, oh, like what's your leadership style, but how do you give examples of how you lead in an organization because you've had that hands-on experience. Building connections in communities, which we know is essential not only to students, you know, right now, because like we're kind of struggling to figure that out potentially, but also generally, right? Like Virginia Tech is a huge place and it's beautiful to feel part of like kind of like the Hokie Nation and, you know, a part of like larger VT, but also really great to find those smaller communities that are kind of your home within the home that is Virginia Tech. Well-being and resiliency. So we also see a lot of mental health benefits of being in an organization, from having social support and learning skills around resiliency. I mean, I even think about the experience of not getting into an organization as something that can be really meaningful for a student, right? If you go through the recruitment process and you just don't make it, like that's a good growing opportunity to either figure out, oh, like that wasn't for me and I can kind of bounce back from it, or oh, how can I reflect on what I maybe could have done different? So definitely some good lessons learned there. Networking, as we've mentioned. So lots of organizations have strong relationships with alumni. I definitely know lots of students who have gotten their like internships and jobs through their organization. And exposure to new things, right? So you might have picked a major because it's something that you liked in high school, or something that you found a passion for outside of school, but you're kind of like, you're already like kind of set on it, but organizations and engaging kind of offer these additional opportunities to try on new things that you might want as well. And skill building. So skills, so that might look like, you know, being the event planner for your organization and learning how to plan an event from start to finish, which is a valuable professional skill. Learning to manage your time if you're involved in multiple things. I'm sure, Delaney, you could speak to this too, with like being somebody who, you know, if you're working and you have organizational obligations, how do you learn your own limits, right? Of like, what can you commit to? How do you create boundaries? So lots of skill building going on in there. Delaney, is there anything that you would add or anything that you feel like is missing?
Sure, I would just add, I think, to the part about resiliency, thinking about a group like Sensations, for example. I'm going to talk about Sensations in every example as per usual, but a group like that where it is audition based, and you know, it happens. We can't take every single person that auditions, obviously, even though honestly we would. But I think that something that I've learned through that experience of working with people, having them like prep with me for their audition and then them not get in, they find something better to do every single time. Like they find something that fits them and that they find their best friends in. For example, I know a girl who is actually the little sister of one of my friends, and I had worked with her for like months on her audition, and it just so happened that we didn't need her voice part. And so she auditioned for the chamber choir the next semester and got in and absolutely loves it. And so I think that as parents, it's super important just to encourage your student that it's okay and they will find something that's better, and they'll find something that's better for them specifically. They'll find something that works for them, and they'll find the connections that they want to find no matter what. That's what's so amazing I think about Virginia Tech, is the fact that we do have so many organizations and so many ways to get involved. And whether it's just the timeline, we've had people audition 4 times before and then get in on their 5th try. And it's the same with any other organization that has like a recruitment process. And a lot of them don't. And a lot of them, you walk in and you're able to be a part of the organization without sort of like a recruitment process. And that's awesome too. And I'm also in organizations like that. So yeah, I would just say that it really is a learning experience. And it's something that I think is a really good skill building experience when you get into organizations that you want to be in, but also maybe you are encouraged to look elsewhere. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks. So here's some things about kind of getting the most out of the organization experience. And I think that some of this is relatable to other involvement experiences as well. So like, I mean, this might feel a little bit repetitive, but we emphasize this for a reason, right? So try something new. We do something called involvement advising, which I think we're going to talk more about. If not, we'll definitely touch on it more heavily at the end. But when we kind of are helping a student find opportunities, or when we do presentations to first year students prior to like Gobbler Fest, yes, it's great to find stuff that is similar to something that you already like, but we always encourage people to go outside of their comfort zone as well, and try something new. You might meet new people that you wouldn't have met otherwise and things like that. Talk with other members about getting more deeply involved. So if you just kind of like wait around for people to tell you how to get more deeply involved, that's not always the best way to find, those leadership opportunities. So really, showing that initiative in your organization can be valuable to getting to grow more in the organization. And then talking to your professors and advisors about how to showcase that experience on a resume. I think about this a lot with the way that I supervise student staff, is we talk constantly about, oh, like we just did this task for work. What does this really look like in your career? How does this, how does this relate to something that's going to be valuable to you in the future? And so if students initiate those conversations, I know staff and professors are really interested in having those conversations with students. And then some like don'ts, right? Like getting overcommitted can kind of sour the journey. So if you found some good commitments and then found some that are kind of like extraneous. So we usually encourage, okay, and there's not like a magic number either, right? We don't say like, everybody should be involved in only 2 organizations. Some people are involved in like 5 and really thriving. And some people are involved in 1 and are like, oh my gosh, that's enough for me, right? That can also be dependent on, your academic program and things of that nature too. And like the extent to which you're involved in those organizations. Like we said, don't do something just because your friends are doing it. Find things that are kind of connected to something that you really want to do. And then don't just do something to put it on your resume. So we talk about the value of an organization, but I was just talking about this with some graduate students the other week, is like, you are going to be able to most successfully talk to your professional accomplishments and like the way that you're prepared if you do something that you really care about. So instead of just joining an honor society because it seems like the right thing that you should do, joining an organization that really focuses on your major and gives you hands-on experience, you're going to show up better in a interview because you're excited to be talking about the things that you were involved in. We have another organization trivia. So which of these is a real student organization? So we have A, squirrel watching, B, basket weaving, and C, fantasy football. Which of these do you think is a real one? And then totally want to get to your question, Christine, for sure. All right, we got C, lots of fantasy football guesses. Got a B, C. Oh, we love this one because surprisingly, it's A, folks. It's Squirrel Watching Club. Is a Virginia Tech organization. They just got recognized through the org process. Wow, that's like last fall now already. But this is a recently established club. They create opportunities for students to observe and joke about the campus squirrel population. So I often refer to these as like our niche interest groups. And some of it's like really about like, you know, caring about the thing that you're talking about. But also they're just kind of like, I don't want to say neutral. I feel like neutral maybe is a funky word to describe it, but neutral community spaces. So I was just talking with the leader of Chocolate Milk Monday Club a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about just like how important it was to him to try and figure out how they can do safe in-person events, because he was like, no, this is like how I met people when I first got here, and I want to make sure that opportunity is available to those folks as well. And so we have some that are also food-based, so the Bagel Club, and Chicken Waffle Friday Club. We also have like the Kanye Club, where they debate their favorite Kanye album and things of the nature, bladesmithing team, and then also a musicians club as well. So, okay.
And then I think we had the question in the chat before we had some of the answers.
Yeah.
What is like the normal timeline to hear back from various clubs?
Yeah,
obviously,
I mean, I think
weird now, but
so I think that I mean, it varies, right? So we don't have like a specific expectation around like how that timeline works. I would offer, if your student reached out to a club and they have not gotten back to them, we'd actually love to know that, because we'd love to make sure that that organization is still active. We do a lot of things to ensure that, you know, people's rosters are up to date as they can be. We just did an audit and found a couple organizations that weren't responsive. But if they are having trouble getting in contact with an organization, we'd love to hear from them. So if they want to email us at thesource@vt.edu, that'd be great. But I think that some organizations, I mean, Delaney, like if you want to speak from like sensations, but if you're auditioning or, you know, applying, that might be different. I also know a lot of people during Gobbler Fest clicked the join organization button and maybe didn't contact the organization directly, which is like a functionality within the platform. So I would encourage them to send them an email directly to the contact that's listed on Gobbler Connect as well.
Yeah. Also, just so you know, we have a question in here. Can you talk about the process of creating a new organization? But before we get there, yeah, in my experience, there are some clubs that are always ready to answer emails. Like they always have someone manning the email, like ready to respond to anyone who's interested. And then you have clubs that, you know, have a recruitment process, like an audition process or something like that, that have like specific times in the semester or in the year that they have auditions or the recruitment process. But yeah, so it really does depend, but I would echo what Morgan said. And if there are organizations that, you know, weeks have passed and no one has responded, definitely send us an email saying, hey, not sure if they're, you know, keeping up to date with things. And it could be something simple, like they use a different email now or something like that, and they just have to update their profile. But yeah, the process for creating a new organization.
Yeah, and I would also offer, it's an expectation that we tell organizations that they're responsive to inquiries from new members, so they can actually lose their recognition if they don't meet expectations like that. So it's helpful for us to know, and then we bring them in for a meeting and they're like, hey, what's going on? And like, it also could be that they're like, our recruitment chair is like disorganized and a mess and like hasn't been keeping up with emails, right? Students run student organizations, so we offer them that grace, but we like to, you know, make sure that we're transparent with them when we get complaints and are like, hey, like this is a concerning thing and not good for the reputation of your organization. The process of creating a new organization. So each semester we run a recognition window. Our minimum standards for creating a new organization is that you have a unique purpose and you have 5 currently enrolled students that are willing to be founding members of the organization. And then you just have to complete the steps in the process in order to be recognized. So we meet with the organization, just kind of talk through like, what are your goals? What are you thinking? I need to make sure as like the institution that they're not like planning on burning down the institution or like blatantly disregarding policy, and they know kind of what they're getting into. We do an orientation training where we kind of walk them through the basics of how to run their organization and resources that are available. Then next week, they'll actually be doing goal setting meetings with our engagement ambassadors. So they do these quick meetings where they have to set 2 SMART goals for the organization. And then they'll be recognized here in another week after they go through all those steps. And we do it all kind of in one smooth line as opposed to on a running basis, because we recognize a lot of organizations. So like I said, we're recognizing 42 new organizations this semester. We usually recognize about 100 new orgs every year between the 2 semesters.
Yeah. And then we do have 2 more questions. The first of which being, are we able to name a few of the clubs that are super popular at Virginia Tech and might be a little bit challenging to get into? The first thing that I think of is fraternity and sorority life. It's not necessarily challenging to get into, but because there are so many of them, but I think in the recruitment process, at least from what I know from sorority recruitment, it can be, obviously, it's very tiring. I know that. And it's a process that, you might come into it thinking that you want to be in a certain sorority and then you end up being in a different one. And that's just like what I'm thinking of as like the social sororities and fraternities on campus. We also have professional and service organizations that are fraternities and sororities, and those they also have a recruitment process that is a little bit challenging. So that's the first thing that I can think of. Morgan, if you have any other ideas.
Yeah, I would offer, I think FSL, I don't remember if they did their panel earlier today or if they're doing theirs tomorrow, but if they're recording it, then that would be available afterwards as well. Because there are some organizations that do informal recruitment versus the formal recruitment is much more kind of what Delaney's talking about. But those are probably a good example. I think like what comes to mind, the one that came to mind like right off the bat was PRISM. So like PRISM and AMA. So a couple, AMA is the American Marketing Association. So those are a couple organizations that are in the Pamplin School of Business. And they have a pretty rigorous application process and interview process to get in. We talk about the a cappella groups. I mean, Delaney, y'all had what, like 74 submissions for your auditions and ended up with 3 new girls?
4, but
4.
Yeah, it was a lot. And we ended up getting close to 80. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely a thing. I mean, but also we have multiple a cappella groups, and like Delaney was saying, like, some of these people often audition for multiple a cappella groups as opposed to just one, and then kind of putting all their eggs in that basket. I'm trying to think of another good example of an organization. I mean, also our sports club teams can be competitive, but often there's either the alternative of an intramural team, or like I actually have an org that I'm recognizing this semester who is setting up a team tennis league. So they tried out for the tennis team, the club sports team, and didn't get in. And we're like, oh, but like we really still want to play like structured tennis. So they run a team tennis league where they play like singles and doubles and have a whole schedule. Students pay a little bit of money to participate, but often there's an alternative of some sort that kind of achieves a similar thing. But yeah, I think some of the like both American Marketing Association and PRISM are like paraprofessional organizations. They like actually have clients. Yes. And things of the nature. So you have to like really apply to get onto the team to work on some of those client projects.
And then just because this is sort of under the umbrella of the source, the next question we have is, do you offer training to leaders of student organizations? And this question made me very excited because it reminds me of Be Well, Lead Well. So I mentioned briefly at the beginning when I was introducing myself that we're working on, we did this last semester as well before things went awry with COVID, but we were able to facilitate the campaign of Be Well, Lead Well, which it helps. We did a bunch of different things, but a lot of what we wanted to do was facilitate conversations between student org leaders about how they manage the stress of being a student leader, as well as academic life and social life, just to start the conversation about, what can we do as Virginia Tech to help you succeed in those roles. We also do a fall leadership series, which is about to happen, which is pretty exciting and timely, where we have different topics that we go through every week. And we talk about, we have a different leader, I think, every single week. And we talk about things like everything from recruitment to ethically serving and things like that. So we also have the roundtable discussions that we were just doing. So we have a lot of little programs that we do throughout the semester that you can kind of pop into every other week when you can. And it helps student leaders sort of learn the things that they need to learn in order to be able to be good student leaders as well as students and just regular people in life. So yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, and also we do, all of our organizations are required to go through a mandatory annual registration training, which they go through like kind of the basics of being recognized and expectations for them. But we also do a leadership topic in all of those sessions that the organizations get to choose from a couple different options. So lots of availability. I mean, our team of engagement ambassadors, plus myself and a graduate assistant, always willing to meet with an organization if they want to do individual consultations as well. And we talked a little bit about the source being the resource center, consultations, the fall leadership series, like Delaney was mentioning, launches next week. I'm actually facilitating the first session where we'll be talking about using your strengths and your Clifton strengths. So I'm a strengths consultant on campus and do a lot of those kinds of request trainings for organizations. So organizations also sometimes request like a facilitated program for their organization. Gobbler Connect is a resource for managing their roster and things like that. And then also in student engagement campus life, we have event services, which helps organizations reserve and plan events. And then production services, which provides AV support for organization events as well.
Just as we move on to the next slide, there was a quick question about, are there opportunities for community service as an option to be involved and also meet new people? The first thing I think of is VT Engage. VT Engage is an organization here that basically they have a team of people that creates and facilitates community service options throughout the week, throughout the month. They usually in a non-COVID semester would do something every single weekend where they like bus students out to go help in communities or things like that. At the moment, they're doing a lot of virtual opportunities, which are still great. And they also facilitate obviously people being together and getting to meet new people. There are a lot of other organizations that are community service based as well. And even thinking about fraternity and sorority life, as far as I know, sororities and fraternities all sort of have a charity that they work towards. And so it's obviously a social opportunity as well as something where you can really connect with a specific issue and work towards that. But yeah, there are a lot of organizations on campus that focus on community service as well as community involvement.
Yeah, I think it's important to, there are a lot of local community organizations. So one that comes to mind is YMCA. So the YMCA runs a thrift store in town, but they also run some like food programs for folks in the community. Micah's Backpack is another one, but I know that I actually just sent an email out to all of our service orgs that those organizations are looking for help. VT Engage isn't facilitating in-person service opportunities because sometimes those people that we're doing service for are the most vulnerable, and bringing a large group of college students into their community might not be the safest choice for the organizations. And so I think they're focusing on ensuring that we're doing things that are kind of safe for everybody involved. They're also, they just recently launched the Market, which is going to be like a campus pantry option. And we have some opportunities for students to either get involved with that through helping coordinate like supply drives and things like that. So, but our service organizations, I think, are still doing some stuff in person. So we have some orgs that do like kind of like creek cleanups and things of that nature. But obviously just ensuring that folks are still able to follow guidelines. But like, for example, we have an org, Connections Across Generations, that would typically do visitation to elderly homes. And that's not really an option for them right now, but they also maintain like a letter writing program with folks that are in one of the local long-term care facilities, and they're still able to do that right now, which is a cool opportunity in the meantime. Okay. And then I also put on student org advisors. So once again, not all of our organizations have advisors, but if they do, their advisor can be a great resource for them to help the organization develop and also connect them with opportunities on campus. And then career and professional development is super willing to work with students to figure out how you put your experience on your resume, and they do workshops by request as well. Yeah, and if you go on Gobbler Connect, and if we want to, we can do a little bit of a share screen and show you. But you can also go to the organizations tab and filter them by categories. And so we have a category for our service and charity organizations where you can find them all listed. I believe that this is our last trivia question. So which of these is a real student organization? So we got A, Robo Jambot, B, Concrete Canoe, C, Space Cam. So folks have a guess for which one is the real one. Okay, we got a couple different answers. Great, thanks y'all. So Concrete Canoe is a Virginia Tech student organization. This design team works to create a concrete mix that actually floats, which apparently is a thing, and is used to build a boat for an annual competition, which they are very similar to a lot of our other technology-based organizations that are design teams. So design teams are often, they're places where students can get involved early. They're mostly engineers, but they are also open to all majors, some of them. And they kind of start by working on some of the maybe more like basic elements of the project, and then they are used for their senior design projects. So when they're a senior, they have to be on a senior design project and they do some of the upper level work. But the students get to travel to competitions and be involved in building a dang car and all of that neat stuff. I've only worked at engineering institutions and still am just amazed by the fact that people do things of that nature. We also have some video gaming teams. If you have a student that's interested in gaming, we just recognized Rocket League last year too, which does not only competitive esports, but also some more like casual gaming, along with Super Smash Brothers, a popular one. I think that they are still thriving in these times. And then Tech Hackers, which hosts a hackathon as well. So lots of technology-driven options for folks who are interested in those things. So I think that's all that we have for y'all this afternoon, but happy to take some additional questions, or if folks want us to, we can, we'll just do that. I'm just gonna pull up Gobbler Connect because maybe that's helpful since we did it's just gonna take me a second to log into Gobbler Connect. So if folks wanna put other questions that you have in the chat, feel free, and I'm gonna get logged into Gobbler Connect. Or maybe my computer will just be logged in and it'll be great. Nope, of course not.
It'll happen at a time that you don't need it to do that.
Okay, actually it's good, cool. Okay, let me share my screen and bring up Gobbler Connect. So this is our student organization management platform. Like I said, if a student's in an organization, their membership's really listed here. All of the events that we have going on are listed on that page as well. If you go to this so you can search for an organization if you know exactly what you're looking for, or you can go to the organizations tab and sort the organizations by different categories. So if we go to, so you're talking about service orgs, organizations get to pick which categories apply to them. So like 209 Ministries works with a local food pantry. Alpha Phi Omega is our co-ed service fraternity. Lots of options under there. So I feel like that's like the most kind of helpful side of Gobbler Connect. And then if we go to one of their pages, you'll see that their contact information is listed. There's some information about the organizations like I mentioned, and then if they have events posted on the platform, and if the student's logged in, they'll be able to see their officers. And so that can sometimes be useful, but like this org is a great example that they put lots of people that you can contact, but it could be useful to contact multiple people sometimes. We're all human and sometimes we miss an email here and there, as is kind of expected. So, following up or emailing others is great. So any other questions, folks? And Delaney and I can hang out if folks kind of want to log off and move on to your next adventures for the day, or, if you're excited to put the game on. But I really appreciate all of y'all joining us.
Hi, this is Helene. Can I just say to parents of freshmen, definitely encourage your students to try something they might not have tried before. I know the tendency for college students when they first get there is to try to continue things they did in high school, and that can be great. But our older daughter, who didn't go to tech, who went to William and Mary, she became involved in these swing dancing clubs. She had never, she'd done some dancing, but not a lot, and, you know, not performing, but just for exercise. And she made her best friends that way. She got some exercise. It, you know, gave her something else to do. And Delaney, I see your mention of your brother. Yes. But sometimes just trying something new. And I loved your point about that they shouldn't be afraid to try it and say, okay, I tried it, you know, not for me. My friends like it. That's great. I'll try something else.
Yeah, I didn't do any sort of singing at all in high school. The last time I was in an organized singing anything was in middle school choir. And one of my friends who is in another one of the a cappella groups, which is awesome, actually encouraged me at orientation that he encouraged me to audition, and I ended up auditioning, and it obviously turned out to be one of my most favorite things in the world. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to encourage their students to try things that maybe they didn't do in high school, for sure.